here's how it works. What we do is we start off with a short run average total cost curve. In other words, I'm just going to take this average total cost curve in the short run here. And this is being a short run average total cost. Now, this is a short run average total cost, but I'm operating in the long run. And so what happens in the short run is I start to increase production, okay, right? I'm going to assume that this is a company that's continuously growing. And what happens is as I increase production, I come along here, right? I get more and more efficient. And then I reach a maximum level of efficiency, right? And then, assuming I continue to grow, I start to go back up the curve. I become inefficient. I'm making money, and I'm making more money, but I'm just not as efficient as I was before. Okay, well, I'm starting to become less and less efficient, but I'm in the long run, so what can I do? As I notice that I'm becoming less efficient. Huh? Okay, I can make adjustment in my fixed assets. Okay, in other words, if part of the reason that I'm becoming inefficient is because of overcrowding, I can now build a new factory or expansion or buy some new machinery or whatever. I can adjust my fixed costs. Well, essentially what I can do is I can come up with a new short run average total cost curve. So as soon as I start becoming inefficient, noticeably inefficient, I do something like expand the factory or buy a new machine, and I have a new average total cost curve, which I jump to this new average total cost curve and I start to follow that law. And I reach some maximum efficiency level. And again, I'm still continuing to grow. And I notice that I start to get inefficient and I expand some more. Every time I reach a level of maximum efficiency and I pass it, I start to become inefficient, and then I readjust my fixed assets, usually some kind of expansion. And what happens then is I have all of these short-run average total cost curve. I keep jumping from one average total cost curve to a next, short run. And I just keep on doing this, basically. And that's, in essence, then, that becomes my long-run average total cost curve. In other words, it just sort of average these out. And this becomes my long run average total cost curve. Okay, does that make sense? For you to follow that. Okay, when we look at the cost curves, especially the long run cost curve, again, notice the kind of shape I gave it. Down sloping and then up sloping. Okay. And even the short run cost curves. Down sloping. We have a number of things that contribute to this, that cause this, the shape of this to go down and then up. The first thing we notice is that whether we're in the short run or the long run, we have a down sloping curve. So we have increased efficiency. Probably one of the most important things is this thing called economies of scale. Economies of scale, another word for this could be economies of size. Because economies of size. And basically what economies of scale has to do with is making the most efficient use of your fixed costs. give you examples, for instance, computers. Okay. Most organizations don't achieve good economies of scale on computers because computers are meant to be used 24 hours a day. So Briarcliff, although you may hear a few, although recently you don't hear very many complaints about Briarcliff computer, the fact is we don't make good use of Briarcliff's computers because if you know anything about computers, especially networks like what we have here, is first of all we never turn it off. I mean they run 365 days a year. Christmas Day the computers run because I think the idea is you have more wear and tear turning computers off and on than you do just letting them run. So they run continuously. But the idea is that nobody's going to be up here using it. Well, the way you could achieve economies of scale in the Briarcliff computer system is if you got more and more people to use it. Because the machines are there, the machine's always turned on, the terminals are there, etc. And the idea would be if Briarcliff could lease out computer time, which is what computer services do. But that would be, see what you have is you have a fixed cost. You have a computer system that's sitting here. It could be used, because it's running. There would be no additional cost involved with keeping the system up. Because like I said, it's turned on right now. And Christmas Day it'll be running. Chances aren't going to be using it. Now, economies of scale would say, go out and try and find people to use it. In other words, sell computers. Now, as a college, we can't do that. But other businesses do. And that's part of the reason why nowadays in banks, for instance, there's very few banks that have their own computer systems. But they have computer systems, but it's not in-house computer. They're usually tied into some network at some other either large bank or parent bank holding company or something like that. Okay, why? Well, because that's where the efficiency, the economies of scale are. We're achieving economies of scale right now. We're using this building on Friday night and we use it on Saturday, etc. So that there's several, the idea is to make the most use of your fixed overhead. And of course, really what we're talking about is that a lot of that fixed cost curve coming down. Okay, there's a number of components of economies of scale, and they talk about one is as you get larger and larger. Again, as I said, economies of scale are almost synonymous with economies of size. You have specialized labor. And so as you have a larger and larger operation, you break up your workforce and you have specialized labor. Okay? You can also have specialized management. So this is where you get the mob operation. They're real fine, but what you have is you have one or two people trying to run the whole show. And as you get a bigger organization, you have people that are specialized, professionals hired in various different agencies. And you have one person who is hired just to do finance, another person hired just to do marketing, another just to do operations, another just to do maintenance possibly or whatever. And those are all economies of size. Again, it's only feasible as you get larger and larger. Equipment utilization. Like I said, you got the computers running 24 hours a day to use them. You've got a machine that is a kind of machine that's supposed to be used 16 hours a day or can be used 16 hours a day, then use it 16. If you don't use any, well, that's unfortunate. You're not achieving good economies of scale. And the third one they talk about is byproducts. You may have byproducts as a small organization. The number of byproducts you have are so small that you have to simply throw them away. As you have a larger and larger amount of wire operation, it's possible then the byproducts can be sold. But these are economies of scale. These are the various things that sort of make up the economies of scale, and it helps explain why both in the short run and the long run our average total cost curve starts to go down. Now, in the long run, Notice what happened in the long run was our average total cost curve then started to go back up. In the short run, for instance here, we know what caused it to go up. We got into diseconomies of scale. No, I should take that back. We did not get diseconomies of scale. We got into diminishing returns. So in the short run, the problems that we encountered with this inefficiency were primarily problems associated with things like overcrowding. Okay. Overcrowding, over-specialization, those types of things. Okay. In the long run, that curve up is what we call diseconomies of scale. And it's important that you don't think of diseconomies of scale as being economies of scale carried too far, or just the opposite. For instance, what's happening here in the short run? The reason the short run average total cost curve is going up is because essentially economies of scale has gone too far. In other words, we talked about specialized labor coming down. Well, now we're going up because we have too much labor. We talked about equipment utilization is coming down here. Well, what could be causing this here now is that we're utilizing the equipment too much. We're using it so much it's starting to break down. We can't do the maintenance on it or whatever. Okay? We can't keep up the quality control. So those are the types of things. When you talk about the long run average total cost curve, remember the long run looked something like this. Average total cost long run. This part here, where we start to go back up, is attributed to what are called diseconomies of scale. And what diseconomies of scale are is the organization being so large that it's too difficult to manage, that you can no longer efficiently manage it. Essentially, diseconomies of scale is a problem of top-heavy management. Where you've got a company that's just so darn big, it's almost impossible for one group of managers or management to efficiently manage the company. And that's where you get some of these companies that have reached this point. They start to get into diseconomies of scale, and then one of the ways they solve it is by breaking it up into separate operating divisions. Okay, and they say, there's no, like General Motors, I don't know if that's the reasoning, but maybe they say, there's no way you can run this whole thing with one slate of management. So what we're going to do is break it up into 5 divisions or something like that, or break automobiles separate from something else, from refrigerators or whatever else they make. Okay, but diseconomies of scale is very specifically, it deals with top-heavy management. The company getting so large that you simply can't manage it.
Wouldn't a limited resource do the same thing, or would that count that as something else?
I guess I would count that as someplace else. I don't know where I'd put it. You mean like if you had a limited labor supply or something like that?
Labor or raw material.
Raw material.
That you gotta dig deeper for or something like that.
It could, but I would think that if that did come in, I never thought of that. I mean, the first person I ever heard mention it. That I would think that would be part of the short run problem. So suppose, at least theoretically, in the long run, you should be able to overcome that with maybe new techniques, mining. And in the case of personnel, you can overcome that because in the long run, you have enough time to retrain people. In resources, you've got enough time to go out and find the new sources of management. But like I said, I never thought of it before. Probably in the short run, that could be a problem here in the short run. As especially, like I said, in the case of labor, you know, if you've got some fairly, really skilled labor, and you start to run out of it, then that can get expensive real fast. Okay, questions? Okay, just one final thing about this, this chapter, they talk about constant returns to scale. Constant returns to scale simply means that there's a level in the cost curve that could be a level where it's flat. It simply means that as you increase production, your average total costs stay the same, which means your marginal costs are going to stay the same. They'll be equal to your average total cost. The fact is that when we talk about constant returns to scale in real life, there's no place that we see constant returns to scale. This is something that makes it a little bit easier to analyze for the economist. And a lot of times what we call these, in fact, you probably came across it. We have things called constant cost industries. And constant cost industry means your average total cost stays the same regardless of what your output is, within a certain range. And like I said, in reality, it is going to happen. You're not going to find a business that's a real constant cost industry. First of all, I mean, if you assuming that every cost has to have at least a couple of dollars worth of fixed costs, that right there rules out the idea of constant cost industry, because your average fixed cost is always going to be changing. But like I said, for the economists, in certain types of analysis, it's easier to start off by saying, let's assume a constant cost industry. We can perform our analysis on it, and then it's like one of these generalizations. After we've done the analysis and we understand it, then we can throw out this assumption of a constant cost industry. But constant cost is exactly what the name implies. The costs are constant; they don't change. He mentions them here. Okay, questions? Okay, let's look at the homework then for chapter 24. Problems 6, right? 6 and 7. Small. Okay. Number 6 says just calculate the marginal product and average product. Assume you can do, and to graph them. And there's what the graph looks like. Very fuzzy, but Any questions on that? Any problems calculating the numbers there? Okay. Number 7, so the sewing firm has a fixed cost of $60. The sum of firm has a fixed cost of $60. Variable costs indicated, complete the table, and when finished, you can check your calculations. I guess I didn't need to do this, but you have fixed costs, of course, you put the $60 in here, the variable costs are given to you, total cost, just add up these to get this. Your average fixed cost, average variable, average total, you're just going through and dividing each one by the quantity, and then your marginal costs. Again, the idea here, on your marginal cost, is this 45 is, in my opinion, properly done now, because the 45 applies to the first row, the first unit that you produce. You're going from a total cost of 60 to 105, the difference between that is 45. Second, you're going from 105 to 145, so it's 40. Any questions on this, calculating this? Now again, notice where this intersection is going to be. If we go down and find the low point on the average total cost curve, it's going to be right here, $47.14. And notice where $47 is going to be. $47 is going to be right about here, right? It's going to be in between 45 and 55. So the two curves are going to intersect right here at the lowest point, right around $47. So the marginal cost is going to cut average total cost at its low point. Then I asked you to graph and this is what it should look like. This is your total cost, total fixed, total variable, total cost. These are your average cost and your marginal cost. And it's explained in non-technical terms why the marginal cost curve intersects both the average variable cost and average total cost curves at their minimum points. And we just did that. So. Questions on this? Let's move on then. We're heading into a new chapter. Do you want to take just a real short, like 5-minute break, and then, okay? But let's keep it short, like 5 minutes or so, and then we'll have less than an hour to go. But this will be a logical way. So you can fold it up and keep it, and the reason it's on blue paper is because they're out of white paper. I'm not sure that concerns anybody. Anyway. Okay, what we're doing, we're gonna start in chapter 25. What we're looking at in chapters 25, 26, 27, 28 is what are called the four market models. Market models, okay? Market is in free market models as opposed to like central plan and stuff like that. In chapter 25, we talk about pure competition, and 26, we talk about pure monopoly, and 27, we talk about monopolistic competition, 28, oligopoly, and then by the time we get to chapter 28, you'll see that this whole thing is filled in and it will all make sense to you, but then you can see how they all relate to each other. One of the things here is spend a lot of time, if you haven't already, on chapter 25. If you understand chapter 25, then the next three chapters, just you breeze through it, because all we do is we go through chapter 25 and explaining the cost and how they determine production, how they determine costs, etc., and whether they're efficient or not efficient. And then basically after you do chapter 25, when we do 26, 27, 28, the only thing we're going to do is we're going to change the demand curve in each one. And so on 26 is the exact same as 25, except we shift the demand curve. And 27, we shift the demand curve another direction. And 29, we shift and bend it a little bit. I shuddered there when I did that. But anyway, so you just learn one thing. Okay, what we have is, like I said, the four basic market models. And they are, across the board, we have pure competition. We have pure competition at one end, and at the other end, here we have pure monopoly. And in between we have monopolistic competition, and we have oligopoly. And so those are our four market models, and really you have to think of this more as a spectrum. In other words, as a continuous line. And by that I mean that if we try and find any particular industry, it's not necessarily going to fit exactly under some category here. Okay, in other words, we might pick out some industry and it'll fit like here, or here, or here, or someplace. So it's a continuous line, and generally we try and sort of say, well, it's closest to this industry. It's either in this or closest to this industry. But it's not, there's no definitive, there's no fine line, something is either over on this side or on that side. It's like I said, it's a spectrum, it's a continuous line. Now, what I want to do briefly here is at this point really start off and talk about all 25, 26, 27, 28, just in general, the characteristics of each of these. Now, the first characteristic is a number of sellers. Okay, now what we're talking about here is industries. We are into microeconomics, so we're not talking about the economy as a whole. We're talking about a particular industry. We're talking about the shoe industry, or the computer industry, or the automobile industry, or whatever. Okay, or I should throw some services in there, the dry cleaning industry.